Hello and welcome to the House of Cult, brought to you by the Pretty Cult. As your host, Arielle Salsa, I am excited to launch a few special episodes for Women's Month. We highlight and celebrate bands all the time, but I wanted to take a moment to celebrate the amazing women behind the scenes that bring you the music you know and love. Today I'm joined by Rachel Hacken of Culture Wave Management, Brittanie Delava from AEG, and Francesca Caldara of Unified Recording Music. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So, for those listening, I am super excited to have all three of these amazing women on the podcast because I have a deep history with all of them, and I'm so excited to talk about it today. Oh man, I think I've actually known Brittanie the longest. Fun tidbit, Brittanie actually gave me my first job ever in the music industry. And when I was writing out this podcast, I was thinking back to the very first interview I ever had while still in music school. And that interview was with Brittanie Delava. At the time, it was the agency group. And I was a very nervous intern. And Brittanie, and I believe it was Liz Kim, also sat in on that interview, if I recall.
Yeah.
For my internship, which then turned into a 4 to 5 year stint with the agency group that then turned to UTA. If I recall, you've worked in many facets of music. You've worked at Sargent House, if I recall, Tag, which became UTA later on, where we met, and now at AEG. I would love for you to kind of shed some light on your career through music and what has brought you to where you are today. And for those who are listening who maybe don't quite understand what you do at your day job, you work for a promoting company. Obviously, AEG does a little festival called Coachella, along with many other things. Just kind of give our listeners a overview of what you do and how you got started.
Hello. My job right now is I'm a vice president of global touring at AEG. And AEG has a lot of different facets. So I'm in AEG Presents, which is obviously the music side. And I work with artists on their full tours and hopefully world tours, but a lot of times just North America. And yeah, like starting in club level all the way up to arenas and maybe one day stadiums. That's what I do now. And I was actually thinking before I got on the podcast, I was thinking about the interview of when I hired you at Agency Group. And like I kind of totally forgot about it until I was just sitting there like thinking about doing this. And it's so crazy because I remember at the time you were like, oh, I make my own clothes. Like I have like all these, the stutter and I was like, that's so crazy. And you started doing it for like everybody in the office. Like,
yeah, I think I did.
I still have like a flannel you made me that ended up kind of being like what your vibe was for Pretty Cult later, which is pretty funny. But yeah, anyways, I have done many roles in music and I felt like it was a really like natural journey. And I didn't necessarily try too hard to get any of those jobs except for my first one, which was just like, please hire me. I'll work for free. I'll do whatever. And then from there, it was really like a natural way of getting my, subsequent jobs just through networking and doing a good job at whatever I was doing so that people reached out trying to hire me. And I've also joked that I've spent my career learning how to back away from the artist because starting on the management side, you're right in it, as you guys know. I was like in the van on the bus with artists a lot, and it's a lot. It's like emotionally a lot. It's sometimes physically a lot. And then when I got the job working in the office in Sargent House, that was a nice step back. But you're still, fielding phone calls from artists who,
You're still on speed dial.
Yeah, like their dog died and they need help figuring out what to do with it. And I'm just like, well, I'm 23 years old. I don't know what to do with that. And then like going over to the agency side, it's like, okay, good. There's like one layer in between me and the artist. There's a manager now. So I can be like, here's how to get to your shows. Best of luck. And then on the promoter side, it's even better where it's like, are you missing a show? Just let me know. I don't really care what's going on with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say too, like, just thinking about the tag days with Brittanie, those of you who obviously wouldn't know but are listening, I mean, I look up to all three of you in very different ways, but Brittanie was someone I looked up to starting out as just a wee little intern and then assistant, and at the time you were like head assistant. You had like been there the longest. She worked for a very big agent at the time, a rock agent named Dave Shapiro. And I remember just going to Brittanie to ask questions. And I was like, when I grow up, I want to be Brittanie. So it's just so cool too. And then eventually you left and I left and you went to AEG, and it's been really cool to, yeah, see you just kind of grow and do different things. And I love that analogy of with each job, you're kind of just stepping back away from the
Yeah.
artist, because it really has kind of, it does seem like that with the trajectory of your career.
Yeah,
I think that's natural with like as you age, but and want to desire more out of life and have that healthier work-life balance. I mean, you're a mom now. Like I think you would have almost not have to, but because there are plenty of women who are moms and also managers and very close to their artists and on speed dial. But yeah, I think it's just kind of like what you want out of life.
well, I think about like whenever anybody wants to get into music, the dream is to like be in the room with the artist. Like that was my original goal, was just like to be there. And so it was so cool to be, in my early 20s and, getting to be involved in these, small rooms where like you're part of it. And I think that as I got older, like you said, Francesca, like I don't need that anymore. I desire like some balance, and it's just like not as cool as it once was.
Yeah, I feel that because even though, I mean, I still say I work in music, but now it's my favorite form of music, working in music, because I can totally pick and choose. And it is something really different on my end now, leaving technically the music industry, but I work alongside artists now. And for me, that's been a really cool change as well, because I feel like I'm looked at more as an artist now than someone who works for the team. And by no way, everyone who works for the team is an important part of an artist's career. Don't ever get that wrong. But I think, yes, it just changes. And I feel like if I had told myself that when I first started at Tag, like, you're gonna do this for a while and you're gonna have a different career, I'd be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? No, no, no. But now I'm like, I would have it no other way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like I understand the shift in like perspective for you. Like my partner is a photographer, and so his interaction with artists, that like we'll work with the same artist and our interaction with the artist will be so different, where I used to get really resentful of like we'd go to the show that I booked and that like I worked my ass off on, and they would all like run to him and give him a hug because he was like the creative force that helped make their photos. And I'm just like, what? I matter too.
Yep.
It's just so interesting how that yeah comes to be. Rachel, who's been quiet over there. As many of you know, Rachel is a very dear friend of mine, very dear friend. But we both met while we were assistants in the agency world, and she worked at the rival WME. While I was also writing this out, I was thinking about my first meeting with you, and I'm pretty sure our first meeting was in an elevator. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't.
I was coming out of the tag office, and we weren't even UTA yet. So I've known Rachel since the tag days, and you had become friends with another assistant in the office, and his name was Matt. And I came into the elevator, the typical like assistant lunch, get out of the office for as long as you can for the up until the last minute of almost running late. And I met you, and I remember at first I was a little like, who's this girl? I don't know, Oh, she works at WME. I don't know. But the years have gone on, and Rachel is one of my favorite people in the world, and we have worked on countless projects together now. And you, similar to Brittanie, have worked in many facets of the music industry. I tried to remember all of them, but I was thinking you've gone from the agency world, obviously where we first met, to marketing at the Golden Voice team. Then you went to management. We have Rock Nation, and we are now Culture Wave, which is under Red Light Management, if I'm saying that correctly. Great. Can you also, because you also have a very interesting walk through your music career, and I would love you to expand on that for our listeners. And I thought it would be really fun too for you to kind of, because so many people I think are enamored by what it's like to be a manager. And Rachel works with some really cool bands. So I would love for you to kind of explain to our listeners kind of what it's like a day in the life of a manager.
Absolutely. So it's funny, when Brittanie was talking, I was like, wow, the way that she went this way, I kind of went that way in terms of inching closer to the artist, which, as she was talking and talking about, balance, I really find it interesting dealing with artists and having to find a balance compared to the previous roles that I had. But I will give as brief as possible. I am a Jewish New Yorker who doesn't know how to keep things brief. Display of where I started. I started out working as an intern for the agency group in New York and in London. And then I moved on to becoming an assistant at WME in California, where I met Arielle. And for the longest time, pretty much ever since I was interning, I was very hell-bent on being an agent. That was all I wanted to do. That is what I envisioned for myself. And then after 3 years of being at an agency, I just felt that it wasn't the right fit for me. And I wanted to try something else, which led me into working at Golden Voice. I wanted to be a promoter because that was what felt natural to me, which I ended up doing with my side hustle, Rock Night Out. But
yes.
At the time, I was hired on for marketing and Golden Voice, which honestly was probably the best thing that could have happened for me, because marketing isn't always the forefront of young adults starting out in the music industry's like dreams. Like, usually I think people think of becoming an A&R, being a manager, being an agent, just because it is so artist focused. And marketing is such a big, ambiguous job, but it's truly so important. And I'm sure Brittanie can attest to, marketing is a creative drive that helps you, help a show go on sale and announce in a creative way, to maintaining sales and hopefully selling it out immediately. And if not, just pushing sales and giving the artists the best experience possible for their individual shows or tours. So I definitely learned a lot in that role. But what I also learned in that role was I was always hungry for doing more than just one role. So as you mentioned, I did have a lot of other jobs. While I was at Golden Voice, I was actually an A&R scout for Atlantic Records. I also was doing my event series, Rock Night Out, which essentially is a showcase that myself and Andrew Purcell, who works with me at Culture Wave and was at Rock Nation with me, we find up-and-coming alternative rock, anything under that umbrella, and showcase them in a very unique space in different venues around Los Angeles, which we've been doing pretty actively since I was at WME all the way through probably the last year. We've taken a little bit of a hiatus since management is very busy, but we do intend to bring it back for the right artists at the right time. But yeah, after COVID hit, unfortunately, well, quick side note, I moved from marketing at Golden Voice to marketing with Brittanie at AEG, who I also admire and look up to and think is the coolest person ever. So it was just so, no, it's true because
it just makes me feel old, by the way.
No, I mean, the thing is that, I think the reason that probably Arielle and I both look up to Brittanie, and if this is a video, you'll probably see why we have similar aesthetics to Brittanie, and Brittanie just has such a cool demeanor and taste, is very smart, and obviously working for a woman who shares different and similar ethos to you just feels different than working for, a dude.
Bunch of dudes.
Which pretty much up until when I went to Golden Voice, I was working for, and it just felt different. And, I'm always going to be grateful for Brittanie for everything she's done for me at that job and beyond. She actually helped me get the job at Rock Nation, which, is part of this nice connectivity that we have here on this Zoom. But yeah, I went on from going and working at AEG. Due to the pandemic, a lot of people within the marketing field were laid off or lost their jobs. And during all of this time as well, I was managing a band, and currently I'm still managing a band called Holy Wars, who I met through Arielle at Echo Park Rising.
That's right.
So
I think, yeah, we just pause your story for a second. Holy Wars, for those listening, should know, if you've been following Pretty Cult for a while, we have done a handful of collabs with them. They've done signings with us. And I remember somebody told me, and I don't even remember who it was like, there's this really sick band. The lead singer's name is Kat. Like, you need to see them. And I had just left TAG or UTA, and I was still like wanting to kind of do music. I was almost doing promoting like some side shows, Pretty Cult Presents, and I put on an entire stage for Echo Park Rising. And it was one of the most stressful things I've ever done, but looking back, one of my most proud moments. I think I gave Twin Temple their second show ever, and Holy Wars was on that bill. And I remember saying to Rachel, because Rachel was getting into management and doing A&R stuff at the time, I was like, dude, you got to see this band. She's really sick. And literally to this day, Rachel is their manager, and they're doing great things. It's so cool to see it. I'm just so proud of everybody on that team. That's just my little insert right there, because I love Holy Wars, and anyone who's been following Pretty Cult for a while knows we champion them real hard.
Yeah, and even to piggyback off of that too, before Holy Wars, with the exception of a couple clients that I managed throughout time, I actually managed Ray Dalton from that song from Macklemore, Can't Hold Us. I was with him when I was in college. Fun fact, I also managed Arielle's husband's band for a period of time.
That's right, she did.
Honestly, it's funny because looking back, I remember when I was working with them, I was like, I can't do this. This is too hard. This is too involved. Like, I can't do all these things. And here I am. But with Holy Wars, I started managing them in 2018 when I was at Golden Voice. I had them play our Rock Night Out showcase after just seeing them at Echo Park Rising. They were in a weird management situation where the manager at the time had stole money from them and then disappeared and stopped speaking to them. And, me being, empathetic and also just a general lover of their music, I raised my hand and was like, hey, like, let me just like help you out in the meantime alongside one of my friends. And eventually it just became me managing them, which ultimately like solidified what I wanted to do, which was management, because as I'm sure you've heard in my long babble, I have a passion for so many different sides of the music industry. Of course, I thrive in live music, which is a lot of what I thrive in here at Culture Wave, is handling a lot of the touring logistics. But being a part of an artist's full career to me just feels like it connects all the dots for all the things that I've done and love. So, moving into Rock Nation, I want to give a shout out to Jason, who I work with here. He really has been a huge champion for me and has instilled a lot of power in me where, starting at Rock Nation, I was working across 3 managers' desks as a day-to-day. And now I am co-managing Kitty with him. I manage Holy Wars, and clients that I work with as a day-to-day include Spirit Box, who are incredible, Loathe, who are amazing, Brand of Sacrifice, Saint Blonde, and a few producers. But truly, being a manager is so many hats, no boundaries, very little sleep, a lot of anxiety. But I honestly wouldn't have it any other way.
But like, if I can jump in, like part of why I pushed for you to get that Rock Nation job when it first came up was like, I worked with you and I fully knew all your side hustles and your passion for music. And I was like, this is a person that can do this job and like enjoy it. Like, I knew that you had the drive to make management work. And like, you are an artist focused person and you're so creative that like being able to use that passion and creativity across a whole, as you said, like an artist full plan, like that's like pretty skilled and like not that many people have it. So like you do. So you're perfect for management.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I feel like you had another question for me that I missed.
Oh, I just asked, and I feel like you covered it, what it was like to really a day-to-day being what it looks like as a manager on your normal day. And I feel like you did kind of cover it, but if you want to kind of elaborate on that more, you know, of what it might look like. I feel like Brittanie also covered it being like, hi, my dog died. What do I do? Managers deal with a lot of stuff for their clients outside the music aspect as well. I can only imagine some of the stories, but I also was thinking when you're going on about marketing, literally, I was in another meeting yesterday with a record label, and I literally told them, I was like, yeah, I think if I didn't own my brand or decided like I wanted to do something else, I think I would go into marketing because I feel like marketing is so fun and creative. Like, it's so creative. And literally, one of my favorite things about owning my brand is the marketing side. Like, of course, I love designing clothing and all of that stuff and working with artists. But when I get to sit down and be like, okay, how do I do something that no one else is doing to advertise XYZ and do it as monetarily efficiently as possible? That stuff just gets me so hot. Like, I love doing it. It's so fun. It's so weird. And I just realized this, like, the other day. I was like, man, if I didn't want to be an entrepreneur since the age of like 10, I would have absolutely, I think, worked in marketing because it's just so fun. But I just had to, I literally, on a label call yesterday, decided to tell VP of like marketing. I was like, yeah, I think if I didn't do this, I would want to be in marketing, you know? And she's like, yeah, absolutely.
Marketing is so fun. And sometimes it seems kind of illegal to be getting paid to do it. At least when I was at Golden Voice, it was all fun and games. We created like zines that were super cute at Golden Voice. Probably one of my favorite marketing thing that I did, which wasn't directly for Brittanie, but it was for the global touring department, was Rammstein came and did a tour.
Sick.
And I forgot who asked me. I think it might have been Nicole Neal, but someone was asking about figuring out a creative way to market it to rock and metal fans. And I was like, why don't we get Jose Mangan to broadcast live from the Rammstein blimp that we have going around the city? And I got to go in it. So now I got to check that off my bucket list. And I'm just like, I get to ride in a blimp and get paid for this? Done.
Sickest job ever. Speaking of sick jobs, Francesca, I think Francesca, so previously you worked at Equal Vision, correct? Which is also a record label.
Mm-hmm.
And now you are a VP at Unified Recording Music. So you've been, if I'm correct, while the rest of us have been, our paths have been like this, you've been pretty label world has been your thing, which I feel like is very interesting. I was just also, Francesca, speaking of my dear husband, and he's going to love that we're talking about him on this podcast, is my dear husband's boss, and this woman puts up with so much from him. I just had to give him a shout out because I know he's hoping that we talk about him.
Well, when Brittanie was talking about going to shows with her partner, like, that's what happens when I go to shows with Kevin, is like, So because I'm I'm both good cop and bad cop with bands like at the same time. Kevin is just fun. Like, and Kevin plays music as well, so he can talk a different language with him. So when we go to shows, the way that our artists light up when he walks into a room is so frustrating to me because I'm like, I am losing sleep over these bands.
That's so,
And
it's
he's
so
just like,
true.
oh, Kevin's here. Yeah.
Yep, Kevin's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, bringing Pokemon cards and all sorts of things to
Exactly.
their bands. But hey, it works, right? You got the yin and the
Yeah.
yang
We have
there.
a good balance.
I would love to know about your journey with Equal Vision coming over to Unified. For our listeners, kind of knowing, I think a lot of people don't really understand how the label world works. And my question kind of for you was a little bit different. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about
Mm-hmm.
labels. And I would love for you to kind of share with our listeners. And obviously, I want to preface every band is different. But what kind of a record deal actually looks like, and debunking like any like negative outlooks I feel like some people have on labels, because labels are very essential for many artists' careers and they are very important. And I know there can be some negativity there, but they're also an amazing resource. And I would love to hear someone like you who has worked in this for a long time, is a VP, kind of just about that.
Yeah. How long do we have? No.
As long it's my podcast, so as long
Yeah.
as you want.
Yeah, so I've wholly worked in independent music. As you said, I was at Equal Vision Records for 11 years, and the key about working in independent music is that you will do everything at some point in time. So I've run the street team and the mailing list and the social media accounts, and I've done PR, and I've been an A&R, and I've handled production. Like, I now know how to order vinyl. I really want CDs to go away as a format, but I've kind of had to touch a bunch of different things. And while I've never worked in management, one of my favorite compliments that I've gotten is that from artist managers that I work with is that they have viewed me as an extension of the management, because I do get in close with the artists, and I am providing, creative ideas and mix notes and setting up budgets and all of the things, and like touching all of these different parts of their journey through releasing music. But yeah, I've primarily just been in label land. Unified is actually in the process of transitioning from being a traditional label setup. And so what we're now focused on is our brand called Community Music, which is providing distribution and artist services, and saying the ability for artists to remain independent, to be in charge of their own careers, and just view us as a partner that you tap in whatever resource you need. And hopefully it's going to enable more artists to make a career out of music. That's our goal anyway. But in terms of what a record deal looks like now, I think it is constantly changing. It is, there is sort of like the old school model of you sign a deal for 7 albums and the label owns all of your rights, and sometimes they even tap into your touring revenue or your merchandise and all of those things. That model is fading away very, very quickly. There are more and more options for artists to retain master ownership, whether you're just doing a license, you're licensing the rights to a particular label or similar company for a set amount of years. There are also ways that you can just do straight up distribution and then hire, independent marketers like Rachel, or you can, you know, engage a larger agency. And yeah, there's like the options out there are kind of endless right now. It's a good time to be an artist, I think.
Yeah, and I do think I'm glad that you brought up the new direction with community music, because from what I understand of it, it is very artist friendly, and you guys kind of give artists the tools,
Mhm.
however big or small, that they need to, and if they need more attention, that availability is there. If they're more independent and just starting out, there's a more artist friendly thing, and I think that's really interesting, and I feel like it'll be interesting to see if like more labels and things go that way as time goes on, because yeah, I think times are changing and we have to
Mhm.
adapt, right? As a business, we all have to. I have a couple
Wait,
questions for all
hang
of you.
on.
Yes,
We have to bring
yes.
it full circle because Francesca and I are like very, very close friends. So we're
Yes.
closing this loop, and we've
Yeah.
Okay.
like many years hanging out and working together and like just in general and
Yeah.
helping each other.
When Brittany was at the agency group, I think half of the bands I worked with at the time, if not more, were booked by Dave and Brittany. So yeah, we've known each other a very, very long time, and yeah, now,
Like
which I'm
that.
very happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Just so crazy. Yeah. I was probably in an office somewhere and didn't even know you yet. And you were emailing Brittany. And
Yeah.
Rachel was like one street over in Century City at her office.
Yeah.
And we were all just, we didn't know it yet, but we were all going to
Totally.
become friends and we were
Yeah.
all going to work together in some capacity. It's just so crazy. The music industry is so big, but it's also so small. And so, like,
Yeah.
everyone knows everyone kind of thing, especially those of us who work more our genre for the
Yeah.
most part, a lot of rock
And
stuff.
yeah, I forgot to also kiss Brittany's ass, but I just want to challenge your statement around like that you didn't try very hard like for particular jobs after the first one, because you did, like you did through your day-to-day work, but also like you got thought of for opportunities because you worked hard and because you had a great attitude, and that cannot be like understated how important it is. Like if you like, it's not even just about like, oh, you can, you know, throw down with the boys or whatever. Like that, of course, I think was important back in that particular time, but now it's also like I think that the at least my experience and like in terms of my career development and opportunities like that, and what I've observed of Brittany is that like yeah, if you've got a general like good attitude about things, like you can be professional, but you're also not like you're not taking things personally. Like if you know don't get a particular opportunity, like if an artist ends up going with, I won't say their name, instead of AEG, like you know we're not sitting here like cursing their name like to everyone who will listen. Just yeah, and at home maybe, but
I think I
but
do
yeah,
that to you sometimes.
yeah. Like you know, but that's just between us. I'm just saying,
Right.
like, because to your point, like the music industry is so big, but it is also so small. So like, if you are a shitty person, can I swear on this podcast? Um,
Yes.
if you are a shitty person, we're gonna know. We're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna be like, "Hey, watch out for this person." Like, but at the
Oh
same
yeah.
time, if you're a good person and you are showing up with good intentions and you're professional, you get your work done, you have a positive attitude, like we're also going to talk about that. And just like where Brittany put Rachel forth for an opportunity, like that's going to happen when you do a good job and you have.
Yeah. Well, and by the
Absolutely.
way, like you saying like you've been told you're an extension of an artist team, like that's 100% true in my experience of working with you and being your friend, because I feel like anytime we're at a show or an event, like everyone knows you and loves you, and like you've introduced me to so many people, and then I feel like I'm totally grandfathered in because you've given me the, the Francesca seal of approval. So like
I can be
you've
a
done
harsh
it.
critic.
You've done such a good job, though, of like, I don't know, making your mark in music, in the music you've worked on. And like when you worked at Equal Vision, like you were an essential part of that team. It was such a small team, and you were the person.
Thank you. I think for a long time, because I was there for 11 years, and I think for a long time I felt like I could never leave because it felt like it was, it was going to be too detrimental to too many careers, like me leaving, but that's like way too much of an ego to give myself. And also like the amount of people that that I'm still in touch with, that I worked with at Equal Vision in terms of artists, like is it, yeah, it's amazing to me. Like I'm now neighbors with Set It Off, who I originally found, and Silverstein was a band that I had tried to sign at Equal Vision, and then as soon as they found out I was going to UNFD, they called me up and were like, "What's UNFD doing?" Yeah, it's cool. I'm very, very grateful for that. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, all three, from my standpoint, all three of you are amazing. Rachel, I'm like, there is no other human, but people say how busy I am. You have not met Rachel Hacken. This woman, I literally, there is not another busier human on the planet except Rachel, and she's still, when you reach out to her for management stuff, is very positive, gets things done. She is a Virgo. It will get done. And then same with Francesca, like we haven't worked directly, but I obviously did the Silverstein collab.
Yeah, I
And,
delegated to Kevin.
Yes. That was funny getting to work with my then fiance on a professional thing, which we worked together great, which not all couples can say. So I'm very happy about that. But thanks to you, you were the one that greenlit that and was also like, why doesn't Pretty Cult do something with Silverstein? They have tarot themed stuff. Like, what are we doing? And then, Brittanie obviously is the one who gave me a chance to work in music. And in recent years, and me stalking Brittany's Instagram, I just have to bring this up because I think it is so cool of how career driven and focused Brittanie is, but she also is a mom. I think that, like, again, aspirations to be one day kind of thing, like, at least the way I was raised, and this is something I've been unlearning through, thank God, therapy. And you are such an example of something of many women, I think, to look at, that you still have a career and an awesome life. And you are also an awesome mom. I see your son on your page all the time. He goes to work with you with his little headphones. He's so cute. Your partner is there with you sometimes. I'm sure you guys, and he also, I know, I still works in music and is a photographer. Yes, absolutely. So you both have careers and you get to be parents. And it's just so cool to see that. I feel like as women, sometimes society feeds us this narrative that we're either bad moms if we continue to have a career and we're not doing a good job, or in order to be a good mom, we need to sacrifice what makes us happy. And for some of us, I think all of us on this podcast, our careers make us happy. And it's really refreshing to see someone do both and do both well and very unapologetically. And I've been wanting to say that to you for a minute now, just like watching your Instagram. I'm like, man, once again, when I was 23 years old, I wanted to be Brittanie when I grew up. And now I'm 34 and I want to be Brittanie when I grow up again. It's just really cool to see that. And I think that that's very aspirational for a lot of women, and that you literally can do it all. You can, if you want to.
I mean, it's not easy.
No.
I cry a lot.
Oh.
But it's also like so cool. And I am not willing to sacrifice like who I am or what I do for work. But I think that it's not as easy without like a helpful partner, because like Jonathan is an amazing photographer, but like has the luxury of being a freelance person. And so like he's the primary parent who's watching Sage when I'm at work or when I'm traveling. Like And without him being like an A+ parent, like there's no way I could do it all. I would have like enormous guilt. And knowing that like he's home with his dad, like that makes me like work guilt-free. So I do feel like sometimes I joke that this was my master plan all along by, dating an artist. But yeah, it was like the wonderful thing that kind of developed without me fully realizing what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, shout out, of course, to great partners too, because
Yeah.
they are very important as well. But I just love that, at least from the outside, it looks like nothing in your life has changed, and Sage is just part of your life and your partner's life. And it's just really cool to see that you're still, I mean, I knew it would be no other way, of course, but have the coolest career and are still a mom. That's just something, especially in the music industry, I feel like as well. There's many of us, are either don't want to be moms or just time, and we live in a very interesting city and a very interesting career when it comes to those types of things. And I also think it's like, I wanted to bring it up too, because I think it's important to mention, because yeah, again, society just puts really weird pressure on women, and also we work in an industry where it is kind of abnormal, and to see someone doing it is just awesome. And yeah, I had to bring that up though,
And
because I was like, again, full circle.
and her kid is like super cool. Like he's just, I don't know. He's just like into cool things and like listens to good music, wears cool clothes. Like he's just like, I don't know, his personality is so awesome. And of course, like it would be with cool parents, but like I don't know, it also like it doesn't happen by accident. Like you're not just born with it. Like you have to be surrounded by good people, and the fact, yeah, it just shows that you're there too, like you're present.
Question for you, Brittany. What is the music that your son likes to listen to?
Oh man. Okay. So he has a playlist, and it starts with Blur song 2 and then goes straight into Wild in the Streets by Circle Jerks. And then the third song is
Isn't there a Fugazi song he loves?
there's Waiting Room, because we ask him if he's a patient boy, and he loves the Ramones. Pet Cemetery is, I think, the fave because he likes the Graveyard music video. He's really into Harry Belafonte, like, loves some island calypso jams. But he also, wants to jam to the Wish soundtrack and like the Toy Story songs. And like, he has a pretty eclectic palette of music.
Oh my God, I love this. I love this. That's incredible.
But like, the one thing I'll say is like, within our industry, it's like this, I think that pre-baby, it was like, I didn't even understand how I had time to like feed myself. How on earth could you put another being into this mix? And like, it's so weird how you kind of just like figure it out. And everyone says that. And it never made any sense to me until all of a sudden I'm like, it's like when you're walking, where you're like, I am walking on 2 feet. Like, how am I doing this? That's kind of how being a parent is, I think, where you're like, well, you're just doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I have to say no to a lot of things that like I really want to go to. Like, I don't go to as many shows as I used to. I don't do as many like drinks and dinners that I want to do, but I kind of like space it out. I try to make sure I'm not disappearing from society, but like, I want to be home for bedtime, and I want to be present and not, I don't know, not just be, thought of when he's a teenager that like, oh, my mom just works all the time. Like, that's like my nightmare.
Yeah.
That's great. You're conscious of that. Like, I love that.
Yeah. Do you think that because you had him after the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah.
So like I think that for everybody, like this isn't special to the music industry. Like I think that pandemic just kind of showed that we can work from home more. And so that probably also like opened up possibilities as well of like Because like I this is not the same at all. I want to say that, but when I was working at Equal Vision, I decided to go back to school and just finish getting my associate's degree because it was something that I started. I just wanted to finish. Not that I needed a degree at that point because I was already working. And then now I'm like, how the hell did I also go to school while working? But yeah, it is one of those things that like you can figure it out. But yeah, especially now, like technology has afforded us like that possibility of getting more done in a shorter amount of time, but also working from anywhere is like a definitely a more unique now time thing.
Like I send emails when like Sage is like reading books in his room. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not needed here. I just need to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, this is just a random tangent. Literally last night, I was like, I want to start keeping a list of all the really weird places I send emails. Last night, it was on the elliptical. I was, no joke, on the elliptical trying to do it and also copy and pasting and emailing. Random
That just sounds really dangerous. I feel like you're going to copy and paste the wrong thing while doing it.
Well, luckily it was an internal TPC email, but I just want to get things done, and when you got stuff to do, you got to figure it out.
Once you graduate to taking like Zoom calls on your elliptical, then you've gone too far.
Okay, that's fair. I do draw the line at that. I try and be at the office or in my house and just have like the records in the background, and it's not anything crazy. So that's totally fair. I have two last questions for each of you. What do you feel has been one of the biggest challenges to overcome working in this industry?
The first thing that popped in my head was the lack of sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can almost like continue our conversation we were just having where it's like boundaries. And I think having a kid is literally what forced me to have boundaries because I previously just didn't have them. And so lack of sleep then occurred because like I'd go to the office at 8:30 or 9, be there till 7, go to dinner, go to a show, and then like repeat every day pretty much. Like I was at so many shows and like I felt like it was all working. Like obviously I was like moving forward in my career and like I felt the results, so then I kept doing it. And then like having a kid was like this hard stop. And I'm so much like lighter in the brain because of it. And like I didn't necessarily realize what I was doing. So I think that like mental health and boundaries is the hardest.
Yeah, I think those ones are good ones for sure. I mean, because it is Women's Month, I do think one challenge being a woman in music, at least in the field that I'm in, which is rock and metal, is I feel like sometimes women need to work a little bit harder than men to just earn the same level of respect as their male counterparts can. Because, the music industry is typically, at least in management and even on the agency side, though it is getting better, very male driven. And even on the record label side, I mean, it's really great being here with such amazing, strong women who are at an incredible level of their career. But I feel like, at least for me, and I'm sure for you guys as well, there's been certain obstacles or certain situations where you feel like you just need to work harder or even just find a way to refine yourself to fit what feels good so you're not being not standing out more than I guess your male counterparts can. Like, I'm very thoughtful in terms of like how I dress. I'm very thoughtful with how I speak and how I present myself. And I do put a lot of pressure on myself, to be honest, with how I'm represented, because to me, it matters a lot because you just have to kind of stand out a little bit harder than certain men can. And even with women too, I feel like there's certain scenarios where we get pitted against each other, at least female artists too. Like a lot of my female artists get compared to one another when they're nothing alike. For example, Spirit Box, when they were looking for a record label, there is a story that Jason told me where a certain label passed on them because they already had enough female rock acts on their labels. And they missed out on an incredible band just because it's of gender. So to me, that's one main thing that is a hard thing to overcome. It's not impossible, but I do think that it is a glaring issue that we deal with maybe every day.
I think you're exactly right with being so overly mindful of like how you dress, how you speak, your just mere presence. You do kind of have to like mute yourself, but yet stand out so that you don't disappear. And it's like a really hard balancing act. And I fully relate to that. And then I'll add to the story of like, I got into like a pretty heated and like controversial debate at work once where there was like a discussion about like, you know, what artists we're going after. And at a certain point, like one of my male coworkers said something like, oh, there's so many of these women right now. They're all just doing the same thing. And I think my eyes were just like, huh? And I saw a couple of the other women on the call like make the same face. So I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, you know, like, and he started listing off the artists. He's like, you know, they're just kind of all the same. And I was like, they're absolutely not. And I was like, and I think that it's really fucked up for you to say it that way. And like, I was all hot because I was like, you know, nervous about what was about to ensue. And like, what ensued was like a little bit validating because basically every woman on the call was side texting me like, thank you for saying something. And every man was like full on defending, like, that's not what he meant. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, these artists have nothing to do with each other. They're artists independent of one another. You would never hear like, you know, think about when like the Strokes, the Vines, like that world was happening. Like clearly there was no cap to how many bands like that were there. Nobody was like, there's too many of these guys
wearing ties,
playing guitars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That.
even in like, you know, metal and metalcore, there's so many of the same 4 or 5 member dudes doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're all different.
A bunch of bros in tank tops. Like how unique.
Yeah, how original.
Yeah.
Took the thoughts right out of my head. I
But
was like, you would never hear in a meeting, oh, there's too many dudes on this lineup.
Yeah.
That would never happen. Never
I know.
happen.
I mean,
so
it's
unfair.
interesting. It is unfair, and it is interesting just to speak on, you know, female artists in the rock and metal space specifically. Like, I feel like I always look out when festival lineups announce to see how many female artists are on these bills, because the truth is, there's a lot of incredible acts out there that exist. Sorry, I'm getting over being sick, and a lot of festivals, especially in the rock and metal space, don't book them or have very, very few acts on those bills. And it's just really sad because we've come such a long way with diversity, even outside of just female-based acts like non-binary, queer, BIPOC, whatever. But at the same time, I feel like in our genre, there's a big gap that I wish would be filled. And I'm not saying to book people just based off of who you are, but to be mindful and to make sure that you're uplifting those people. Or even like certain festivals will put all the female acts playing against each other at the exact same time. It's intentional and it's weird. And I think that's something that I'm really passionate about, which is why I'm really lucky to work with female acts, including Kitty, Holy Wars, and Spearbox, because they are pioneers in their own way, and I just want to uplift them.
Amen.
Absolutely. Yeah, so well said.
I do want to, I guess, like, just kind of challenge the idea that, like, we have to be conscious of how we dress or we have to be conscious of how we speak. Like, I think that there's, like, that stat that is really stuck with me where women will only apply for jobs that they're 100% qualified for, but men will apply for jobs they're like, what is it, like 40% qualified for or something. And so, yeah, just that's one that stuck with me that I have tried to take into almost like everything that I'm doing, and that like, and also to stop telling myself like I have to or I should do. It's like, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Also, shout out therapy. but
Yes.
yeah.
Therapy. Everyone
Look.
needs therapy. I will never not
Yeah.
say it.
Like, it's not right, but it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, your
You
experience.
do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah, I think part of the dressing thing too is obviously from a respect level, but also just I feel like sometimes I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys in the past, but even being backstage, I want to make sure that people know that I am a representative of a band and not just a girlfriend or a friend that's hanging out because you know we all work very hard for what we do and we want that recognition and that respect. So you
Well,
know.
good news, Rachel. Wait 10 years and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. Because I definitely feel like
Yeah.
an advantage to aging is that no one thinks I'm there for fun anymore.
No. No one has assumed that I am at a show just for fun in years.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, but like when I was in my 20s, it definitely was something like I'd be standing there and someone would be like, "Oh, who are you with?" And I'm like, "What?"
Yes.
The agency group.
Yes. Yeah.
I really didn't understand the question, and then
Yeah.
I quickly understood what was being asked.
Cool. Can't wait.
Yeah. I was like, thank God, at least I dress however I want now, owning a clothing brand. But there are moments, of course, if I'm being that I'm attending a unified show or an artist we want to work with, I obviously keep that in mind. Also, going that I am a representative of the Pretty Cult, but also my husband's work, and dressing accordingly. But also, I feel like in my space, it's interesting, and I'm going to try and say this without throwing any shade. But I work with in my scene, most of the large alt clothing brands are men owned. So that is a very interesting landscape to navigate sometimes.
Of like what they think women want to wear.
Oh, that's my favorite conversation to have.
Yeah.
There's one brand in particular where they came up was like, and I've only ever had this with men. We'll come up, if we're at a festival and we're all there, the usual players. And I had an owner come up and go, oh, I used to make that. Oh, yeah, I used to do that. Like the talking down thing. And I'm like,
Weird.
cool. Well, yeah, weird. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I still make it and I probably make it better because I make it for women's bodies because I'm a woman and I know how it's supposed to fit. Or with men, more so, I get the, oh, yeah, we're making that now. And I'm like, oh, so you saw that it's selling really well for me. And okay, sure. But men they don't care and they'll just say whatever. And it is very much this, it's a really interesting dynamic that I've definitely vented to Rachel about many of festivals being at and really being like, I'm even trying to think, and I'm like, out of the main alternative clothing brands that do a lot of the stuff within the scene, I really am the only woman owned one, which is crazy. But I definitely feel there's moments where I'm like, oh, I'm in a dude's world right now.
I mean, that's the music industry as well, as a whole.
Yes.
Like, it's awesome that we are all here talking to each other, but like, how many times have we all been in a room and been the only woman? And like, I think that like part of like trudging your way through a career in music as a woman, I kind of just feel like you have to forget you're a woman and just fucking do it, because otherwise you'll get like scared or self-conscious or like caught up in it all. And I think that like anytime I've had a situation where I felt out of place or like someone was judging me for something, I've kind of like, pep talked myself and like dug my feet in of just like, no, like I'm gonna keep going here.
It's so true. I want to end this on, and I don't know if this is a cliche question, but I kind of love when I get asked this question. If you could tell your younger self who's starting out in the music industry one valuable lesson, what would you tell her?
Not that serious.
I know. I was like, we got serious and we all have thinking faces on.
No, I mean, that's what I would say. It's
Yeah.
not that serious.
It's not that serious.
I remember like full breakdown crying at like messing up the tiniest thing. And like our jobs matter, but like not really.
It's not life or death. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like
We're
nobody's
not,
dying because
yeah, we're not curing cancer. We're not
we have the
like,
wrong tick account.
yes. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I remember crying over the first band I dropped. They probably don't remember anything like, and for me it was like this very scarring thing. Or I got into like a heated argument with a tour manager. I'll have to tell you who it was, Brittany, but yeah, I got into a heated argument with a tour manager for some reason, and that always like stuck with me. And I'm just like, he never thinks about me at all. So
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it's definitely like just let it go. It's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I
What's
feel
your
like that was
take?
some advice I received from a former coworker at Tag told me, we're not here doing brain surgery. Like your job, do a good job, but no one's going to die at this job if you mess something up, you know? And it's so true. And like just everything, it's just not that deep. It's just not that deep.
Yeah.
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 I think mine would be to just let things happen the way they're supposed to and know that things will work out the way that the universe intends for it to be. Because I've been in positions, especially when I was first starting out, my first job, or my first internship, I interned for Atlantic Records. And long story short, I lied about getting college credits. They found out and they were like, you can't work here. And I remember feeling this pit in my stomach, crying to my mom in the middle of New York City, being like, this is it. I'll never get hired again. Thinking it was the end of the road for me. And it was really just the beginning. Again, this is just the smallest of, stones in my journey. But, I think that anytime you think something is over, you're really just beginning. And yeah, you just have to keep on moving forward.
It's very rarely permanent. Like that's been one of my biggest lessons of the past year is like that there is always another side to whatever it is that I'm dealing with. Like it's not going to forever feel like this, and it's not going to forever like be this difficult. There's always another side to it. And I've now seen that enough that when I'm in, the tough stuff, that I can remember like there is another side to it that's not as hard.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'd say don't be afraid of change either, kind of piggybacking off Rachel, because I remember the moment I decided I was going to leave the UTA and I had gotten to a point where it was not good for my mental health, and my boyfriend, now husband at the time, pointed it out to me. And one of my old bosses, who I still look up to this day, Christian Bernhardt, told me, hey, dude, I think it's time for you to go, And I'll never forget that. And I was like so scared. I was interviewing for another agency, but I was so scared. And I was like, oh my God, am I never going to work in music again? And what's funny is like, I left music technically, but if I had never done that, I never would be doing Pretty Cool. And from that day of leaving UTA, moving forward, I just was like, well, I guess I'm just going to give Pretty Call a shot and see what happens. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But now coming full circle, I'm like, I get to work with so many people that I used to work with. I get to work with artists now in other capacities. And like, it's far more enjoyable because I'm in charge of my own career and I can decide if I want to work with someone or not. And it's so much more fulfilling, So never be afraid of change.
Do you remember our meal we had when you were like close to the end at UTA?
No, tell
In
me. I
little,
remember there were many meals close to the end.
in little Tokyo, we went out to that weirdo little spot and we were talking, and you told me, you were telling me about like all the drama that was happening, and then I was like, why don't you just like make your clothes?
Yeah, you
And
were
like,
one of the few people that did. You and
yeah.
also, funny enough, Daniel McCartney
Oh
was one
yeah.
who was like, maybe like you're doing pretty well with Pretty Cult. Maybe you
Yeah.
should just like see about that. And I was like,
But I
okay, yeah,
remember you
yeah.
being like, no, that's not a real job. You were like, I could
Little did
just
I
do it on
know.
the side.
I was so hell bent. I wanted to be an agent. I wanted to be a big music career woman, and I wanted to be, the big rock agent, female rock agent. That was my dream. I'm sure that was Rachel's too.
It was.
And then I was like, yeah, fuck this shit. My soul is getting eaten. Well, thank you so much for joining me, you guys. I've had so much fun, and it was so important to me for the month of March to highlight not only female artists, we have some great female podcasts coming with some great female artists, but to also highlight the extremely important people, especially women behind the scenes in the music industry. So thank you so, so much for joining me.